There's a particular kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones, the kind that doesn't just come from lack of sleep, but from being drained to your core. That was me as my Uber rolled to a stop in front of what I had always thought of as my house. The place I was supposed to come back to. I let out a heavy sigh, rubbing my temples before stepping out, stretching slightly after hours spent crammed into a plane seat. 3 weeks. That's how long I had been gone. Not for some luxurious getaway, not for leisure, but for work. A grueling business trip that had left me mentally drained and physically beaten. But through all of it, one thought kept me going: home. Home meant comfort. It meant familiarity. It meant her. Or at least, that's what I thought. The Uber driver gave me a polite nod before pulling away, leaving me standing there on the curb, suitcase in hand, staring at the house that should have welcomed me back. I adjusted my grip on the handle, took a deep breath, and made my way toward the front door. The porch light flickered, casting long shadows across the steps as I approached. I reached into my pocket, fingers brushing against my keyring, anticipation building as I imagined stepping inside, kicking off my shoes, and collapsing onto the couch. But the second I slid my key into the lock, something was off. The key didn't turn. I frowned, tried again, twisting it, jiggling it slightly, but nothing happened. The lock didn't budge. Confused, I pulled the key out and stared at it, wondering if maybe exhaustion was making me fumble. But no, it was the right key. The same one I'd used for years. I tried again. Still nothing. That's when it hit me. The locks had been changed. A sharp chill crawled up my spine, and my heartbeat started to pick up, slow and heavy. Why? Why would she change the locks? I stepped back, glancing up at the windows. The curtains were drawn, but a warm glow leaked through the edges, confirming that someone was inside. Yet, no movement. No TV murmuring in the background. No muffled footsteps. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, my stomach twisting the moment I saw the name flashing across the screen. A text. From my wife. I tapped the notification with a growing sense of unease, my eyes scanning the message. I found someone better. Don't bother trying to come in. I've moved on. For a moment, I didn't move. Didn't blink. My breath was trapped in my chest, held hostage by the weight of those words. I read them again. And again. They didn't change. A slow, creeping heat spread through my body, burning away the exhaustion that had weighed me down just minutes ago. My jaw tightened. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. Lifting my gaze, my eyes found the small security camera positioned near the front door, the same one I had installed for our safety. Now, it wasn't protecting me. It was watching me. And I could picture her inside, sitting comfortably on my couch, watching me through her phone or the TV screen, waiting for my reaction. Would I pound on the door? Yell? Beg? Would I demand an explanation? No. I inhaled deeply, my grip tightening on my suitcase handle. And then, slowly, deliberately, I smiled. With a steady hand, I typed my response. Are you sure about that? I hit send. Then, without another word, I turned around and walked away. No outburst. No scene. No pleading. Just silence. Because, unlike her, I knew something she didn't. She thought she had won. She thought she had outplayed me. She thought she had torn my world apart with one swift, heartless message. But what she didn't realize was that she had just set something in motion that she would never see coming. I had built this life with her, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck, decision by decision. Every dollar in our accounts, every bit of comfort she now took for granted, I had provided. And now, she had locked me out. But what she didn't understand. She had just locked herself into something much, much worse. As I walked away from that house, my mind was already moving, already calculating. I wasn't angry. Anger was too simple. I was focused. Because this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. 3 days before I found myself locked out of my own house like a stranger, I noticed something. It wasn't obvious at first. Just little things. Tiny details that, in hindsight, were the first cracks in the foundation of my marriage. The first whispers that something was very, very wrong. It started with a video call. I was sprawled across my hotel bed, exhausted after back-to-back meetings, my laptop open beside me. Even with the time difference making things tricky, I always made an effort to call my wife. No matter how drained I was, I wanted to hear her voice. To see her face. At least, I used to. When she answered, her face lit up the screen, a soft smile curving her lips. She looked beautiful, too beautiful for a late-night call. Her makeup was done, her hair curled just right, her lips painted with the kind of gloss she usually saved for date nights. She was wearing a silky top, not the oversized t-shirts she usually lounged around in when she was home alone. That was the first sign. I should have asked about it. Should have questioned why she looked like she was about to head out instead of winding down for the night. Instead, I let it slide, convincing myself that maybe she had just wanted to look nice for me. But then my eyes drifted to the background. To the living room behind her. Something was off. The pillows. For years, she had a specific way of arranging them. A coral-colored pillow always sat on the left side of the couch, her favorite spot. She curled up with it whenever we watched movies. It was her comfort thing. But now, it was gone. In its place was a different pillow. A pillow I didn't recognize. I frowned. Shifted slightly on the bed. Did you redecorate? She glanced at the pillows, then let out a light, airy laugh, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Oh yeah, I just wanted a little change. Thought the old ones were getting boring. It was a casual answer. Perfectly normal. But the way she hurried past the topic? The way her smile flickered for just a fraction of a second before she recovered? Something twisted in my gut. I told myself I was overthinking, and I let it go. Then came the second sign. Her texts started changing. We had always had a rhythm, quick messages throughout the day, inside jokes, little updates about our lives. Even when I was on business trips, she checked in, sent me random thoughts, counted down the days until I came home. But this time, her messages became short, distant. I'd send something simple, just finished a long meeting, can't wait to be back home. And she'd reply hours later with, that's great. Hope it went well. No, I miss you. No emojis. No follow-ups. At first, I figured she was just busy. Maybe stressed with work. But the more it happened, the more it became clear, she wasn't just busy. She was pulling away. Then came the Raol warning sign. 3 nights before my flight home, we were on another call. I was sitting by my hotel window, watching the city lights flicker below, telling her about a client I had finally closed a deal with. She was nodding, smiling at the right moments. But she wasn't really listening. And then, in the middle of our conversation, I heard it. A man's laughter. Quick. Brief. Just a short chuckle in the background. But I knew instantly, that wasn't the TV. The depth, the tone, the casual ease in it. It belonged to someone who felt comfortable in my home. My chest tightened. Who was that? Her eyes widened slightly. Just for a second. Then she blinked. Shook her head. What? The laugh. I heard someone. She let out a nervous chuckle, brushing it off. Oh, that. That was just the TV. I frowned. Shifted in my seat. What show? A tiny pause. Just half a second too long. Then she shrugged. Some comedy special. I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't argue. But I knew my sound system. I had installed it myself. Had watched countless movies with her, sat on that couch beside her, memorized the way the surround sound echoed differently depending on where we sat. And that laugh. It didn't come from the speakers. Still, I let it go. Told myself I was being paranoid. That stress was getting to me. That my mind was creating problems where there weren't any. I pushed the doubt aside. Buried it beneath logic. Trusted her. That was my mistake. 2 days later, she stopped asking about my return. Normally, she counted down the days. Sent texts about how excited she was to have me back. This time, when I mentioned my flight, she just said, "Oh, that's soon." No excitement. No anticipation. Just indifference. That night, I sat in my hotel room, staring at my phone long after she had hung up. My instincts were screaming at me. But I didn't listen. I still wanted to believe in her. I still wanted to believe in us. And then, just 24 hours later, I landed at the airport, stepped into an Uber, drove to my house, and discovered the locks had been changed. My wife had replaced me. She had planned this betrayal for weeks, maybe even months. While I was gone, while I was still texting her, still thinking we were fine, she thought I wouldn't see it coming. She thought she had covered her tracks. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly anticipated, was that I had already started putting the pieces together. I just hadn't realized how deep the betrayal went. Not yet. I didn't go home that night. Technically, I couldn't. The locks had been changed, and my wife, the woman I had built a life with, trusted, sacrificed for, had made it clear that I was no longer welcome. She thought that was the end of it. She thought she had won. But this wasn't over. Not even close. I checked into a hotel a few miles away, a sleek, business-friendly place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. A place where I could think, where I could plan, where I could get answers. I wasn't interested in emotional outbursts. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to scream at her doorstep or demand explanations. No. I wanted facts. Cold, hard, undeniable. And there was only one person I trusted to help me get them. Daniel. If there was one thing Daniel was good at, it was uncovering secrets. He had a talent for finding what people wanted to keep hidden. It was an art form to him, really. I called him. He answered on the second ring. Tell me everything. I leaned back in the hotel's armchair, exhaling slowly. She changed the locks. Sent me a text saying she's moved on. That was it. A pause. Then a low whistle. Damn. Cold. She's inside the house right now, I continued, my voice steady, calm. Watching me through the security camera. And you didn't react? No. Daniel chuckled. That's gotta be messing with her head. She wasn't expecting that. I rubbed my temples. But I don't care about the text. I don't care about the locks. What I care about is knowing who she's with. Then I heard Daniel typing in the background. You think she didn't do this alone? She didn't, I said simply. Someone is in that house with her. And I need to know who. It didn't take long. Within an hour, Daniel had the first piece of the puzzle. Found something interesting, he said, his voice sharp. She's been spending a lot of time with a guy named Lucas. I frowned. The name meant nothing to me. Lucas. Client from her firm. They've been spotted together a few times, restaurants, bars, a couple of events. Nothing blatant, but enough to raise eyebrows. I stayed silent, absorbing the information. But Daniel wasn't finished. The guy has a history, man. He's not just some random affair. He targets married women in high positions. Makes them think he loves them, gains their trust, and then disappears. My jaw clenched. You're saying he's a con artist. More like a predator. Daniel exhaled. He cozies up to women like your wife, uses them for their money, their connections. He's done this before. 3 times, actually. Each time, the woman ended up losing something. Her job, her savings, sometimes even her reputation. I stared out the window, my grip tightening around my phone. So this wasn't just infidelity. It was manipulation. A calculated move. And here's where it gets really interesting, Daniel continued. Your wife has no idea what she's walking into. And get this, everything she owns? Everything she thinks is hers? It's not. I smirked. She thinks she won. She thinks she's in control, Daniel corrected. She thinks she's finally free of you. But what she doesn't know, what she never bothered to check, is that her financial stability, her lifestyle, her so-called independence. It's all tied to you. I closed my eyes briefly, letting that settle. I had been generous. Too generous. I had supported her ambitions, helped her start her business, invested in her ideas, made sure she had the financial backing to build the life she wanted. And now? Now she had walked into this new relationship thinking she was taking everything with her. But in reality, she had walked away with nothing. And the best part? She didn't even know it yet. I opened my laptop and pulled up our financial records. The first thing I checked was our joint account. It didn't take long to notice the discrepancies. She had been moving money. Large amounts. Not all at once, she had been careful, strategic. Transferring in small increments to avoid raising suspicion. But she had forgotten something. I still had access to those records. And the pattern was obvious. It wasn't just household expenses, like she had labeled them. She had bought a new car. She had purchased luxury furniture. She had made several high-end transactions at designer stores. And the worst part? She had dipped into company funds. That was the moment my smirk fully formed. Because now she wasn't just a cheater. Now, she was a liability. I grabbed my phone and sent Daniel a message. Find out everything you can about Lucas. I want to know his every move. Then, I sent another text. To her. Just had an interesting chat with the board about those expense reports. The couch looks great, by the way. I'll need the original receipts. It took less than a minute for her to respond. What are you talking about? I leaned back in my chair, letting my fingers hover over the keyboard. This was the moment. The moment she realized she wasn't as smart as she thought she was. The moment she understood that the game had just begun. I typed back slowly, deliberately. Oh, and Lucas's history with other women? Very enlightening. 3 settlements in 2 years. That's impressive. The typing indicator appeared. Then disappeared. Then reappeared. Then stopped. Natalie had spent weeks, maybe months, crafting her perfect exit plan. But she had overlooked one crucial detail. I wasn't the kind of man you betray without consequences. She thought she had won. No. Now she was panicking. And I wasn't even close to finished. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry. Not because I was heartbroken. Because my mind was working. Calculating. Natalie had made a grave mistake, not just by betraying me, but by thinking she could walk away unscathed. I sat in my hotel room, fingers tapping against my knee, my laptop screen casting a dim glow across the dark space. I went through every detail Daniel had uncovered. Lucas wasn't just some fling. He was a professional liar. A seasoned con artist. A predator who lured in powerful women, used them, drained them financially, and vanished. And now, he had set his sights on Natalie. She thought she had won. She thought Lucas was her fresh start. She had no idea he was about to be her biggest downfall. Then, just when I thought I had all the pieces, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Natalie's younger sister, Clara. I hesitated before answering. Clara and I were never particularly close. But she was sharp, observant. The only one in Natalie's family who ever truly seemed to understand me. Her voice was shaking when she spoke. I can't keep this to myself anymore. I sat up straighter. What's wrong? It's about Lucas. I exhaled slowly. What about him? He's done this before. More times than you know. But it's worse than you think. My grip on the phone tightened. Go on. He makes women believe they're special. That he's in love with them. Then he convinces them to do things, illegal things. Money laundering. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. And when everything crashes down. When they lose their jobs, their homes, their reputations. I already knew the answer. He's gone. Clara's voice cracked. I told her, Jake. I told her to be careful. I told her he wasn't who he pretended to be. But she wouldn't listen. She's convinced that this time is different. That Lucas actually loves her. I clenched my jaw. Love. Lucas didn't love her. He was using her. And there's something else, Clara continued. Natalie has been moving money out of your joint account. Big amounts. She told me it was for business, but I checked. That's not what it is. I already knew. But I stayed silent, letting her speak. She's been draining company funds, too. And there it was. The final, undeniable truth. Natalie wasn't just having an affair. She was committing financial crimes. Jake, I know she hurt you. I know you probably hate her right now. But Lucas, he's dangerous. He's going to ruin her. And if she keeps making these choices, she might not recover. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. She's still my sister, and I don't want her to lose everything. I exhaled, rubbing my temples. She already has. Silence. Then, softly, what are you going to do? I leaned forward, my eyes locked on my laptop screen, scanning through the financial records. The evidence. The trail of destruction Lucas had left behind in other women's lives. I'm going to let her think she's in control. And then, I smirked. And then, I'm going to take everything back. The next morning, I woke up early, showered, got dressed, had my coffee, like it was just another day. But today was different. Today was the beginning of the end for Natalie. I sat in the hotel lobby, sipping black coffee, watching the sun rise over the city skyline. My mind was already 10 steps ahead, orchestrating what needed to happen next. First, I needed confirmation. I logged into our financial records again. Clara had been right. Natalie had been making large transactions. But one in particular caught my attention. A wire transfer. To Lucas. I stared at the screen, the number glaring at me. $50,000. She had given him money. She wasn't just being used. She was actively funding his lifestyle. My fingers hovered over my phone screen before I typed out a message. Hey Nat, hope you're doing well. Just noticed a large wire transfer from our account. Need some clarification. Call me. I hit send. And then I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then my phone buzzed. Her name flashed across the screen. I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. What do you want? She snapped. I smiled. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. Cut the crap, Jake. Why are you texting me? I leaned back in my chair. I was just reviewing our finances and noticed some interesting activity. Thought I'd give you a chance to explain. Silence. Then, her voice softened. Jake, let's not do this. It's over. We don't need to fight about money. I nearly laughed. Not fight about money. Of course, I said smoothly. I'm just curious. What was the $50,000 for? That's none of your business. I let out a low hum. See, that's where you're wrong. It is my business. Because, technically, it was my money. Silence. Jake. I just hope Lucas was worth it. The silence stretched. Then, for the first time I heard it. Uncertainty. Fear. How do you know about Lucas? I smiled. Oh, Natalie. I leaned forward, resting my elbow on the table. I know everything. Her breath hitched. Good. Let her panic. Let her scramble. Let her realize that the game she thought she was playing had just turned against her. You had someone follow me, she demanded. No need. I chuckled. You left plenty of breadcrumbs on your own. Jake, listen. No, you listen. My voice turned sharp, cold. You think you've won. You think you've built a new life. That you've walked away with everything. But what you don't know, what you never bothered to check, is that everything you have, everything you own, everything you're standing on. I let the words hang in the air. It's mine. She inhaled sharply. You're lying. I laughed. Am I? Silence. Then, the smallest, quietest, most desperate thing she had ever said to me. What do you want? I tilted my head, watching the city move outside the window. I want you to think about what's coming next. And then, I hung up, because the best way to break someone is to let them break themselves. And Natalie, she had just begun to crack. Natalie didn't call again that night. She didn't text. She didn't try to reach out. Not immediately. And I knew exactly why. She was in survival mode now. She wasn't thinking about apologies or regrets. She wasn't sitting in a dark room reflecting on her mistakes. No. She was scrambling, trying to find a way out, trying to undo what she had done. And I let her. I let her believe that maybe, just maybe, she still had a chance to fix this. Because the truth, she didn't. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Natalie. I let it ring. Then, when it stopped, another text popped up. I need to talk. Please. I stared at the message for a long moment, my smirk widening. I could feel the shift. 3 days ago, she had locked me out, convinced she had won. 2 days ago, she was defensive, trying to hold on to control. Yesterday, she was starting to realize she had made a mistake. And now? Now, she was begging. But I didn't reply. Not yet. Because today wasn't about her. Today was about taking back what was mine. By 9 a.m., I was sitting in a sleek conference room, the polished mahogany table stretching across the space, lined with leather chairs. The walls were adorned with modern artwork. The air was thick with tension. Across from me, 5 board members sat, shifting uncomfortably. They weren't used to surprises. And this meeting, this was the kind of surprise that would change everything. I placed a folder on the table and clasped my hands together. As most of you know, my wife Natalie has been managing company finances for the past few years. A few nods. Careful. Hesitant. She has also made several unauthorized financial decisions, I continued, my tone calm. Some of which involve misappropriating company funds. A murmur spread through the room. A few exchanged glances. Now, I said, opening the folder and sliding the first document across the table, I've compiled evidence that shows a pattern of irregular transactions. Large sums of money, moved under the guise of operational expenses. A gray-haired board member frowned as he skimmed the document. This is substantial. I leaned back in my chair. That's one way to put it. Another board member, a sharp-eyed woman in a navy suit, spoke up. What are you proposing? I smiled. A full audit. The room tensed. An audit meant exposure. It meant pulling apart every financial decision Natalie had ever made. It meant no more secrets. This will ruin her career, someone muttered. I tilted my head. She ruined it herself. Then, the woman in the navy suit folded her hands. And if we agree... I slid another document across the table. I currently own 12% of the company's shares, I said. I acquired them through a holding company years ago. Their eyes widened. Natalie never knew. She thought she ran this place. She thought she was untouchable. I leaned forward. She was wrong. A heavy silence stretched across the table. Then, finally, the gray-haired board member exhaled and nodded. We'll move forward with the audit. I smiled. Checkmate. An hour later, as I stepped out of the building, my phone buzzed again. Natalie. I sighed, debating whether to answer. I didn't have to. I had already won. But some part of me wanted to hear it. To hear her voice now that she knew she was losing. So, I answered. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence stretch. Jake, she breathed. Her voice was raw. Frantic. Please talk to me. I glanced at my watch. I'm listening. A pause. Then, her voice cracked. I don't know what to do. I almost laughed. 3 days ago, she was so sure of herself. So certain she had everything figured out. No. She was lost. Lucas is gone, she continued. He took the money. I can't reach him. I can't. Her voice hitched. I stayed silent. Let her feel it. Let her sit in the destruction she caused. I know I hurt you, she whispered. I was stupid. I thought I was making the right choice. But I was wrong. I hummed, unmoved. And what choice was that? She swallowed hard. I thought Lucas loved me. There it was. The final crack. The moment she realized how badly she had miscalculated. I let out a slow breath. You made your bed, Natalie. Her breath shuddered. I know. And then, the words I had been waiting for. Jake, I need your help. I smiled. Oh, sweetheart, I murmured, mocking the way she had always spoken down to me. Help is the last thing I'm giving you. Then, a sob. I tilted my head. Do you know what the best part is? She sniffled. What? You locked me out. Her breath hitched. You changed the locks. You thought you were keeping me out of your life. I let that hang for a moment. Then, I delivered the final blow. But really... A pause. You locked yourself in. She gasped. Goodbye, Natalie. And then, before she could say another word, I hung up. And this time, she didn't call back. Natalie was done. She had spent weeks, maybe months, thinking she was in control. Thinking she had outmaneuvered me. Convinced that she had won. And now, she was trapped. Alone. Broke. Jobless. And the best part, she did it to herself. She didn't just lose. She destroyed herself. And I never had to lift a finger. At 9 a.m., Daniel called. Board made their decision, he said. It's official. She's out. I exhaled slowly, leaning back in my chair. That fast? She left them no choice, Daniel replied. The audit confirmed the missing funds. Her position was already unstable. And let's be real, after what she pulled, nobody's stepping in to save her. I smirked. So what's next? She's got two options, Daniel said. Resign quietly, or face a full investigation. A beat of silence stretched between us. Then, we both chuckled. Because we already knew what she was going to do. Natalie would never survive a full investigation. She had too many secrets. Too many financial missteps. Too many bad decisions she didn't want anyone to see. Which meant her only real option was to walk away before she was pushed. And just like that, the company she thought she controlled, the power she thought she had, it was gone. Not in a fiery explosion. Not in a dramatic confrontation. Just gone. Like it had never really belonged to her at all. That afternoon, I got another text from Daniel. Lucas dumped her. I actually laughed when I saw it. I had been expecting it. But the speed of it, almost impressive. Lucas had taken what he wanted. Natalie's money. Her resources. Her blind trust. And the moment she had nothing left to offer, he vanished. Just like he had done to all the women before her. She never even saw it coming. And that was the part that made this almost poetic. She had spent so much time trying to outmaneuver me, convinced she was one step ahead, when, in reality, she was the one being played. Lucas used her, drained her, and then left her right where she put herself. Alone. No. Now, she was standing in the wreckage of her own choices. And there was no one left to save her. That evening, Daniel sent me one final update. Got something else for you, he said. I raised an eyebrow. What now? Daniel chuckled. Clara gave me access to some emails. I tapped my fingers against my desk. Tell me. Natalie and Lucas were planning to use your company's insider information for their own gain. I stilled. Explain. She was feeding him details, Daniel said. Trying to help him secure deals. Trying to position him in the right rooms. But the real kicker. What? Daniel's grin was almost audible through the phone. Lucas was playing her the entire time. My smirk returned. So she wasn't just cheating. She was committing fraud. And she put it all in writing. Oh yeah, Daniel confirmed. Clara turned over the emails. If this went public, Natalie wouldn't just be losing her career. She'd be facing charges. I shook my head. Unbelievable. She thought she was clever. Thought she was going to walk away from me and thrive. Instead, she walked straight into her own downfall. And the best part, she did it to herself. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't rub it in. Because I didn't need to. Natalie knew. She knew she was ruined. And that was enough. Later that night, I checked the security cameras one last time. She was sitting on the living room floor, staring at nothing. No phone in her hand. No plans. No exit strategy. Just sitting. I tilted my head, watching her. The same way she had once watched me through those cameras. She had been so sure of herself that night. So sure she had won. And now, she was in ruins. I closed my laptop and leaned back, letting out a slow breath. The game was over. And I had won. The morning after Natalie lost everything, I expected one of two things. Either she would finally disappear, too ashamed to show her face again, or she would come crawling back. It turned out to be the latter. At exactly 8:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a text. Not a voicemail. A call. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then, just as it was about to go to voicemail, I answered. But I didn't speak. I let the silence stretch, waiting for her to fill it. Jake. Her voice was hollow. Like the weight of her choices had finally settled. Like she had spent the entire night sitting in the ruins of her own destruction and didn't know where to go from here. I leaned back in my chair. Good morning, Natalie. A shaky breath. Please don't do this. I smirked. Do what? She hesitated. You know what I mean. I tilted my head. I'm afraid you'll have to be more specific. Jake. No, I cut her off smoothly. You don't get to Jake me. You don't get to say my name like it still means something to you. Then, she exhaled. I know I messed up. I chuckled. That's an understatement. Another silence. Then, the desperation. I was stupid. I let myself believe in something that wasn't real. I made the wrong choices. I see that now. I raised an eyebrow. Do you? Yes, she whispered. And I know I don't deserve anything from you, but please. I let the word linger in the air. Please what? She swallowed. Please help me. There it was. The final step. She had gone from gloating to defensive, to panicked, to begging. It had taken days. But she was finally here. And I was going to let her drown in it. I sighed dramatically. Help you with what, Natalie? She swallowed. I have nowhere to go. Not my problem. My accounts are frozen. Good. Her voice wavered. I don't know what to do. I smiled. You remember the night I came home? You remember how you watched me through the security camera while I stood on the porch? She didn't answer. How you sent that text? I found someone better. Don't bother trying to come in. You still sure about that? A sharp inhale. A quiet sob. I waited. Let her sit in it. Let her break. Then, softly, I said, Goodbye, Natalie. And before she could say another word, I hung up. This time, she never called again. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.